The unspoken guardrails of attraction. Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between being the man she craves and the man she merely tolerates. You've been lied to. You've been told that total honesty is the key to a woman's heart, but that is a trap designed to strip you of your power. Your life with women is about to change forever because I'm handing you the hard, unfiltered truth they will never confess to your face. There are things men share in the heat of the moment, thinking they are building closeness or emotional intimacy, but in reality, they are pouring acid on the foundation of attraction. You think you're being deep, she sees you becoming weak. You think you're building a bridge, you're actually building a wall that keeps her from ever seeing you as a dominant, capable leader again. Once you let certain secrets slip, once you show her the raw, unedited version of your fears and failures, she will never look at you with that same spark of admiration. It's like a glass that shatters. You can try to glue the pieces back together, but she will always see the cracks. If you want to be a man who is truly respected, deeply admired, and consistently desired, you must master the art of the unspoken. Most men are like open books with cheap plots, predictable, messy, and ultimately boring. If you want to keep your edge, you have to realize that attraction lives in the space between what is known and what is hidden. Men who ignore these guardrails end up in the friend zone of their own relationships, wondering why the passion died, why she stopped laughing at their jokes, or why she no longer looks at them like the king she once saw. This isn't just about dating. It's about survival in a modern world that is constantly trying to soften you. Society wants you to be vulnerable and expressive because a soft man is easy to manage. But a woman's biological hardwiring doesn't care about modern social trends. She is looking for the rock, the lighthouse, and the stormbreaker. Every time you overshare your internal chaos, you prove to her that you aren't that man. You are essentially telling her that you can't even handle your own mind. So, how could you ever handle a life with her? I don't want you to be the guy who gets pity instead of lust. I want you to be the man who maintains his masculine frame regardless of the pressure. Lean in right now and take this seriously because these guardrails are the only thing keeping your relationship from falling into the abyss of roommate status. Take notes if you have to, and make sure you're subscribed because the world is full of voices telling you to be weak, but I'm the only one telling you how to stay strong. We are talking about maintaining your masculine edge, that sharp, dangerous, and magnetic quality that makes a woman feel safe and excited all at once. If you let that edge get dull by spilling your guts every time you feel a hint of stress, you lose the game before it's even started. This is about discipline, mystery, and the power of what is left unsaid. Guard your secrets like you guard your life, because in the world of high level attraction, your silence is often your greatest weapon. 1. Your deepest insecurities. We live in a culture that is obsessed with opening up, but you need to understand that social media advice and biological reality are two very different things. The modern world tells you that being vulnerable is a strength, but in the high stakes arena of sexual polarity, broadcasting your deepest weaknesses is the fastest way to kill the spark. You might think that by telling her your darkest doubts, you are building a bridge of emotional intimacy. But what you are actually doing is dismantling the very foundation of her attraction. Women are biologically hardwired to seek security, stability, and a rock they can rely on when the world gets chaotic. The moment you start spilling your guts about how you feel inadequate or how you're worried you won't succeed, you are essentially telling her that the rock is crumbling. You are forcing her to step out of her feminine ease and into a protective, mothering role to soothe your ego. Once she starts mothering you, she stops desiring you. It is impossible to be both the man she looks up to and the man she has to emotionally babysit. Think about the weight of history and the men who actually led. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man on earth, the emperor of Rome, facing plagues, wars, and betrayal. He had doubts. He had fears. He felt the crushing weight of his responsibilities every single day. But did he go to his wife or his court to cry about his imposter syndrome? Absolutely not. He processed those struggles in the silence of his private journal, his meditations. He knew that his power came from his ability to master his internal world before attempting to lead the external one. He understood that a leader who broadcasts his insecurity loses his authority. When you tell a woman, I'm scared I'm going to lose my job, or I don't think I'm as good as the other guys, you are planting a seed of doubt in her mind that will eventually grow into a forest of resentment. She might offer you comfort in the moment. She might even hold you and tell you it's okay, but she is filing that information away. Later, when a real crisis hits, she won't look to you for direction. She will remember the cracks you showed her, and she will feel an instinctive, cold dread that you aren't strong enough to protect her. This doesn't mean you have to be a robot, but it means you must be strategic about where you dump your emotional trash. If you are struggling, go to your war room. Talk to a trusted mentor, a brother who has his life together, or a therapist who can help you solve the problem. Your woman should see the solution, not the struggle. She wants to see the finished product, the man who has faced his demons and won. She wants to be the passenger on a ship with a captain who knows exactly where he's going, even if the seas are rough. If the captain comes out of the cabin shaking and saying he's lost, the passengers don't feel closer to him. They start looking for the lifeboats. By keeping your deepest insecurities to yourself and mastering them in private, you maintain the masculine frame that keeps her feeling safe, grounded, and intensely attracted to you. 2. Your body count or past flings. Let's talk about one of the most common traps men fall into: the past history interrogation. At some point, she's going to ask the question. She'll lean in, act completely non judgmental, and say, "So, how many girls have you actually been with?" Or, "Tell me about your past flings." Do not be fooled. This is not a moment for brutal honesty or clearing the air. It is a test of your frame and your discipline. The moment you give her a specific number, you have already lost. If your number is high, she will immediately label you as a player or a reckless man who can't be trusted, and she will spend the rest of the relationship wondering if you're actually capable of being loyal to her. If your number is low, she will secretly wonder if you lack experience, if other women didn't want you, or if you don't actually understand how to handle a woman in the bedroom. There is no winning number because the truth in this context is almost always used as a weapon against you later on. A wise man understands that his past is a private library and he is the only one with the key. You must let your present presence define you, not a list of names from 5 years ago. When a woman pushes for these details, she isn't actually looking for a data point. She is testing to see if you will fold under her pressure. She wants to see if you are the type of man who can hold a secret and maintain mystery. Attraction thrives on the unknown. The second you tell her everything, you become a solved puzzle. The mysterious man is always more attractive than the open book. By withholding the specifics, you force her imagination to work for you instead of against you. She will assume you are experienced enough to be desired by others, which increases your pre-selection value, but she won't have any specific facts to use for retroactive jealousy or future arguments. When she asks, you don't fold, you don't stutter, and you definitely don't give a number. You redirect the conversation with charm, confidence, and a touch of mystery. You tell her, I've had enough experiences to know exactly what I want, and I'm wise enough to know exactly what I won't settle for. That answer is a masterpiece of masculine communication. It tells her that you are a man of high standards, that you have options, and that your focus is on her in the present moment. It shuts down the interrogation while simultaneously making you look more sophisticated and self assured. You are essentially telling her that your past is irrelevant because your current version is the best one. Why give away information that can only be used to judge you, limit you, or poison her image of you? Keep the vault locked. Your silence isn't a lie, it is an act of discipline that protects the attraction and keeps her focused on the man you are today, not the ghost of who you used to be. The specifics of your finances. Money is one of the most powerful tools in a man's arsenal, but the moment you reveal the exact balance of your bank account, you voluntarily hand over your leverage. You need to understand that financial transparency early on is not honesty. It is a tactical error that puts you in a cage. If you reveal that your earnings are modest, you risk her subconsciously labeling you as a man with a low ceiling, someone who lacks the drive or the capability to conquer the world. On the other side of the coin, if you brag about having a massive surplus, you run the risk of her valuing you primarily for your utility. You become a paycheck with a face. Instead of being drawn to your character, your humor, or your masculine presence, her brain begins to calibrate her attraction based on what you can buy her. In either scenario, you've stopped being a man of mystery and started being a data point on a spreadsheet. A woman doesn't actually need to see your tax returns to feel secure. She needs to feel the weight of your ambition, your direction, and your discipline. Think about the titans of history, like Rockefeller, or modern disruptors like Musk. They didn't walk around showing off bank statements to gain respect. They commanded respect through the sheer scale of their vision and their relentless pursuit of a goal. When you lead with your vision rather than your net worth, you become the prize. You are showing her that you are a man who is going somewhere, which is far more attractive than a man who has already arrived and has nothing left to build. By keeping the exact numbers in the dark, you maintain a level of mystery that keeps her intrigued and focused on your potential rather than your current limits. If she ever asks you directly about your income or your savings, do not take the bait. Turning it into a confession of, I make exactly this much, kills the dynamic instantly. Instead, you need to show her that you have total command over your life without giving away the details. You look her in the eye and say, I have more than enough to handle everything that matters, and I'm fully focused on building even more. That answer is a masterclass in masculine framing. It tells her that you are stable, you are a provider, and most importantly, you are still hungry. It signals that you have a plan and the discipline to execute it. You aren't hiding behind a number, you are standing behind your word. Protect your financial specifics like you protect a crown jewel, because once the mystery of your wealth is gone, so is a massive part of your influence. 4. Your raw fears. Every man on this planet experiences fear. It is a biological reality, but there is a massive difference between feeling fear and voicing it to the woman you want to lead. The moment you take those raw, unpolished fears and dump them into her lap, the fundamental dynamic of your relationship shifts, and usually for the worse. You have to realize that a woman's attraction to you is deeply tied to her feeling safe in your presence. She wants to believe that no matter how hard the wind blows or how high the waves get, you are the lighthouse that will not flicker. When you start confessing that you're terrified of the future or scared of failing, you aren't being brave or vulnerable. You are effectively telling her that the protector she's leaning on is just as frightened as she is. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, famously taught that we suffer far more in our imaginations than we ever do in reality. When you speak your fears out loud, you aren't just expressing them, you are manifesting them in her mind. You are planting your darkest imaginations into her head, and now she begins to fear with you instead of leaning on you. This creates a feedback loop of anxiety that erodes her trust in your leadership. Once she doubts your ability to stay calm under pressure, the sexual tension and the respect she has for you will start to evaporate. She doesn't want to be your therapist or your emotional safety net. She wants to know that you are the one who handles the darkness so she can stay in the light. Carrying your fear silently isn't about being fake. It's about having the masculine discipline to process your emotions in the right environment. If you're feeling the pressure, you take that to your journal, your gym, or your circle of trusted brothers. You master the fear in private so that when you stand before her, you project nothing but unshakable courage. Let her see your resolve, your actions, and your strength. Never let her see your trembling. There is an incredible power in silence. When things go wrong and you remain composed and focused without complaining or admitting fear, you look 10 times stronger than any man who feels the need to share his feelings. Your silence in the face of a storm is the loudest proof of your strength, and that is what keeps a woman's admiration locked on you for the long haul. 5. Past betrayals and heartbreak. It is time to stop using your past pain as a conversation starter. One of the most common mistakes men make is thinking that sharing stories of how they were cheated on, lied to, or used by an ex girlfriend will make a new woman sympathize with them and treat them better. You think you're showing her your human side or building a bond through shared trauma, but what you're actually doing is advertising your own low market value. When you tell a woman that you were betrayed, her subconscious mind doesn't think, poor guy, I'll be the one to save him. Instead, it asks a much more dangerous question. What did those other women see in him or lack in him that made them think he was worth betraying? By revealing those scars, you are effectively showing her that you have a history of being chosen last, being disrespected, and being walked over. You are handing her a blueprint on how to devalue you. A man of true power understands that he must never drag the ghosts of his past into the sanctuary of his present. When you relive those betrayals through words, you are telling her that you are still defined by the people who hurt you. You are essentially bringing your ex into the room with you, and no woman wants to compete with the shadow of a man's past heartbreak. Think about Alexander the Great. He dealt with assassination plots, disloyal generals, and constant betrayal from those he trusted most. But he didn't stand before his Macedonian phalanx and weep about how unfair his life was or how much it hurt to be let down. He stood taller, adjusted his strategy, and marched toward the next conquest as if no wound could ever slow him down. He knew that leaders cannot afford the luxury of being seen as a victim. If his men saw him as a victim of his circumstances, they would have stopped following him. The same rule applies to your relationship. You must stop being a victim who still bleeds in public. If you haven't healed from a past betrayal, that is a battle for you to fight with yourself, your brothers, or your mentor. When you are with a woman, she needs your absolute presence, not your baggage. She wants to feel the strength of a man who has conquered his past, not a man who is still haunted by it. If she asks about your past relationships, you don't give her a sob story. You keep it brief, masculine, and forward facing. You say, it didn't work out because our values didn't align, and I've moved on to better things. That is the language of a warrior. It shows that you have the emotional maturity to leave the past behind without carrying the bitterness. When you refuse to dwell on your heartbreaks, you project a level of self-worth that is incredibly magnetic. You are showing her that you are a man who looks forward, not backward, and that your value is not determined by how someone treated you yesterday, but by how you carry yourself today. 6. Your lack of self-control. One of the most vital secrets to maintaining long-term attraction is never revealing your internal lack of self-control. Every man has areas where he struggles, whether it's a lack of discipline in his fitness, a vice he hasn't fully kicked, or a tendency to get distracted by things that don't matter. But the moment you vocalize these struggles to a woman, you etch an indelible image of helplessness in her mind. Women are naturally and powerfully drawn to men who have achieved self-mastery. They want to be with the man who can say no to his impulses. Because if you can't even lead yourself, she will never believe that you can lead her or a family. If you admit that you can't help yourself when it comes to certain temptations, you are telling her that you are a slave to your own whims. You are signaling that you lack the masculine brakes necessary to keep your life on the right track. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously taught that no man is truly free if he is not the master of himself. If you reveal your weak spots, your addictions, your laziness, or your lack of focus, you are showing her your chains. You might think it's being relatable, but attraction isn't built on being relatable. It's built on being aspirational. A woman wants to be inspired by your discipline, not burdened by your lack of it. Think of Winston Churchill during the darkest days of World War II. He struggled with a crippling depression he called his black dog, and he certainly had his own personal vices. But he never allowed the public or his enemies to see those cracks. He projected an image of unshakable, cigar chomping strength and iron will. Because he mastered his image and his actions, he was able to lead a nation through the fire. He understood that a leader's private battles must remain private, so that his public strength can remain absolute. You must turn your weaknesses into discipline in the dark before you ever think about speaking of them in the light. If you're struggling with something, fix it. Don't talk about how hard it is to fix, just do the work. A woman should see the result of your discipline, not the messy process of you trying to find it. When you show up with a sharp mind, a fit body, and a focused life, she doesn't need to know how many times you wanted to quit. She only needs to see that you didn't. Don't tell her where you stumble, show her where you stand. When you keep your internal battles to yourself, you maintain the frame of a man who is in total command of his destiny. You become the man who moves forward despite his flaws, rather than the man who uses his flaws as an excuse to stand still. Your self-control is your power. Never give it away by confessing your weaknesses to the one person who needs to believe in your strength the most. 7. Your self-doubt. Self-doubt is a quiet storm that every man faces, but it is a storm you must weather alone or with your brothers, never in front of the woman you lead. You need to understand that doubt, in its purest form, is actually a natural fuel for growth. It's the internal signal that tells you to sharpen your skills, check your blind spots, and work harder. However, while it is a useful tool for personal development, it is a catastrophic topic of conversation for your relationship. The very second you speak your self-doubt into her ears, you aren't just sharing your feelings, you are creating a permanent crack in her faith in your ability to handle life. A woman's attraction is inextricably linked to the sense of security she feels in your presence. When you voice your uncertainty, you are effectively telling her that the man at the helm of the ship isn't sure if he can stay the course. You are handing her a heavy bag of anxiety that she was never designed to carry. And once she starts doubting you, the respect that fuels her desire begins to wither away. Think of it through the lens of a battlefield. Imagine a general standing before his exhausted soldiers on the eve of a massive conflict. If that general turns to his men and says, "I'm not really sure if my strategy will work," or "I'm doubting if we have what it takes to win," he has already lost the war before a single shot is fired. His words create hesitation in the hearts of his troops, and in the heat of battle, hesitation is what gets people killed. Your relationship operates on a similar frequency of leadership and trust. Even if you are still figuring out the details behind the scenes, even if you are staying up late at night crunching the numbers or refining the plan, you must project an image of absolute certainty to her. She doesn't need to be involved in the messy, uncertain how of your process. She needs to believe in the what and the why of your vision. When you show her a man who is sure of himself, she can relax into her feminine energy, knowing she is with a man who has his hand firmly on the wheel. There is a profound psychological truth you must master. Doubt shrinks when it is confronted in silence, but it grows and takes on a life of its own the moment it is spoken out loud. When you keep your doubts to yourself and face them with discipline, you force yourself to find solutions and build real confidence. But when you vent those doubts to her, you are looking for temporary emotional relief at the expense of your long term authority. You might feel lighter after confessing your fears, but she will feel heavier, and that weight will eventually turn into resentment. As Seneca famously said, it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult. If you want her to dare to follow you, to dare to trust you, and to dare to give you her heart, you cannot be the source of the difficulty by being unsure of yourself.